So today we're going to talk about how to discover if why a man doesn't want to commit to you. And I'm really excited to have a special guest in the house, Susan Winter. Susan, why don't men want to commit these days?
They don't have to, Jonathan.
They don't have to. Why don't they have to?
We have allowed them to have the Christmas presents 364 days out of the year. Why would they need to? They oftentimes don't have to work, or they don't know what they want, or they've gotten lazy, or they've been hurt. There are dozens of reasons why they won't commit. They have a fear of emotional responsibility.
Yeah. So that doesn't make men bad.
No, no.
You know, and you said something a moment ago, they've been hurt. I think a lot of emphasis, or let me reframe that. There isn't enough emphasis of how much pain people in midlife, particularly in midlife, have experienced through a relationship or two or three that didn't work out. Would you agree?
Yes. And Jonathan, I love working with my guys, and listen, when a man asks for our help, right?
Yeah.
They so want to get the relationship right. They kind of know they don't know everything about relationships. It's this weird thing about love. But when you get a man who had a family, had a commitment to a woman, had children, and that relationship ends, he is like a ship just afloat in the sea. It is such a loss for him that we as women don't even understand what that means to lose your family. And then oftentimes men who don't have a lot of psychological information like you do, Jonathan, I mean, they start to look at this painful experience and they can't get over it. They carry that negativity and the sarcasm and the doubt and the pain forward. And if you meet them, they could be a great guy, but they're not going to let you in.
So you work with a lot of men. And by the way, folks, if you're not familiar with Susan Winter is an amazing coach. We are friends. Yes, I wanted to bring her on today. Many of you already follow her. So I'm excited to have you on. But you work with men. So, and I don't. I mean, I understand. I'd like to think, being a man, I understand male behavior
you are a man.
to some degree. At least let me check. Yes, I am. But you get to hear what a lot of men share on a interpersonal level, on a really heart-centered level. And you shared something interesting, because many of them, I think, are wandering in the dark because they didn't have a successful relationship, and they really don't have the tools to really create a successful relationship forward. So here's my question. For thousands of years, we've been indoctrinated to believe that men are the leaders of a relationship. But if we're talking about men who are lost and wandering, how can they be the leaders of the relationship if they're already confused?
That's a good point, Jonathan. This is where the ladies could step up.
Okay.
If, and this is big, if he's worth it, if he has character, integrity, if he's worth it, yes. If you think there is potential in this man, not just you hope, but you really think that he has been wounded, he's trying to let go of it, and he wants to trust the process again, you can allow him information as to how that works. Men, I don't think women understand how deeply men can hurt. And the posturing and the bluster, and to me, men's greatest fear is looking weak and needy. Greatest fear. Everything they do to posture, right? Like when you're a young kid, like just act like you don't care. And those guys, the worst yet, they get the girl.
I know.
Right? And so the good guys that have a heart get trampled on, don't know why their wife left them, aren't quite sure. They went to work every day. They did everything right. She got bored. She thought she'd switch them out. And so they don't really know what happened. Now they're just gun shy and they're terrified about the whole situation.
Well, but let me ask you something, because I have an audience here that would argue men are the ones who are deceptive and inconsiderate and not very relationship oriented, and they go in seeking companionship, connection, and sex without any level of commitment. I would say a significant percentage of women watching would say, "Well, it's not my fault that he had wounded from his past. Why do I?" But he'll carry that wound and treat me unfairly. So I think there's something deeper here
Yeah,
that
I
I
mean,
want to explore with you.
both exist.
Yeah.
You've got your guys that are wounded, and you've got your guys that are just plain shut down, and they're
Yeah.
not worth exploring, right? I mean, because Jonathan, you're always talking about what a good guy is, and if he wants you and if he's making steps forward with the relationship. So a lot of that we have to figure out on our own. But the thing is,
Yeah.
sometimes they don't know when you ask them, like, what the deal is. They really truly don't know. They're not hiding it from you. And then there are those that know and just don't want to tell you. And then there are the group, like I said, that are uh, they don't want to be responsible for your reactions to their poor behavior. So they don't want
Oh, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. Say that they don't want to be responsible for
for their
your.
for your reactions to their poor behavior.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
they don't want to get into a relationship, because the word relationship means, oh God, now I've got to listen to what she's feeling. And now she's going to give me feedback. I just want to have fun. Right?
Now, you and I, okay, let's talk about this for a second, because I believe that what's missing throughout history, what's been missing in so many relationships, and let me explain where I'm going. Throughout history, relationships were very transactional. There was a dependency involved.
Right.
I believe relationships of today going forward requires an emotional investment for relationship success. I believe, and by the way, and men can't just sit there and say, I'm not good at it, or I've been stoic. I believe that they actually have to learn how to be more expressive of their emotions, to tap into their emotions, because by doing so, it actually gives you strength. A lot of people don't realize that vulnerability is the most courageous thing you can do.
It is.
So you obviously counsel men to really tap into their emotional side and be expressive to women in relationship. Is that right?
Yeah, but mostly the men who come to me are emotionally open and wounded and want to get it right. They're not the ones who are shut down. Those guys I have conversations with.
Okay.
And I kind of like to play around with and like nudge them in different areas, but they're not coming to me saying, gee, I'm shut down. How can I? That doesn't happen so much. But you're absolutely right. Although today, with a lot of the younger gals, with the Instagram culture of, marry a billionaire, he's got to be private equity, have this Hermes bag, this is the lifestyle you want. It's becoming more transactional. But for our audience, for people who are evolved and aware and have worked on themselves and want quality, they want a quality partner that loves them. They want to lean back and feel safe. The man has to be in it. He has to emotionally invest.
Now, you just said a key word, in it. I call this being all in.
Yes.
I think, you know what, in my opinion, and you might disagree with me on this, but I'm of the belief that when two people begin a physically intimate relationship, they should do it with intentionality. In other words, it's intentional. We have a purpose. It's to decide if we make good life mates with one another. And that would require actually spending more time together, maybe in each other's respective homes, but do it from a place of, listen, I'm going all in to see if this works. If it doesn't, I want to know quickly than drag it out the way our current dating environment is. How do you feel about diving in quickly? Now, again, these are two people that have agreed to physical intimacy at that point.
One, I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Okay.
Two, also, as we get older, we could indeed move faster because we've got our don't do it, want it, don't do it. Our list is so clear in our minds, right?
Okay.
But you did that, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm all in. Let's put this to the test. That's
Yeah.
the only way you know. I
And
mean,
mind you, I know in my case it didn't work out because ultimately we came close together, but as we did, we realized we were actually further apart. And that's the risk you take in relationship.
but
But
you
if I
both
did the long distance back and forth, it could
no.
have taken years to figure that out.
Exactly. You would have wasted years. You see, so here's something you brought up, which I love.
Okay.
For about 25, 30 years, I've been doing designs. And the design, we're talking about structure. I
Okay.
don't know whether you call it that, but I call it a structural design. You're going in intentionally,
Yes.
looking at what you've got, looking at what you want, and figuring out, how do I take these pieces and work it in a functional version of my life? You don't, right? You don't want to be long distance. That's a key thing for you. Let's
Yeah.
live together. I want to be married. Let's see how we function together. Oftentimes suggest, when people are dating,
Yeah.
that the two of them will have an agreement, say, listen, let's
Yeah.
close down the apps for everybody else. Let's just try this, just you and I.
Yeah.
Do a test run. How does it feel just focusing on each other? And then at the end of a month, we talk about it. It's a yes, it's a no. Like, but without that
I'm in
specific,
I'm in agreement. So I'm going to take it a step further. You want to hear my idea?
okay, all
Okay, so
right,
now again, this is when two people have agreed to physical intimacy. They've
okay,
agreed to take down their dating profiles. They
yeah,
agreed to give this a 3-month shot. And within that period, like in other words, you say, look, let's explore each other over the next 90 days to see if it makes sense to do something more serious.
or
We're
even a month
intentional
if
about
they're
it.
shy. Yeah,
Well,
right.
you know what?
Okay.
Here's the thing. I think of 90 days like the probationary period for professionals. You know, like in other words, your 90-day job. Like, you know, and but here's the caveat. You have to spend 2 weeks in each other's homes respectively. Like you have to spend 2 weeks living out of this person's home and you got to spend 2 weeks living out of the other person's home. But I'm going to hear complaints, but Jonathan, we live far apart and we can't do that. And I'm like, well, then why the fuck are you even doing this if you can't spend 2 weeks in each other's home to see if you can actually even live together? Now, keep in mind, these are people that agreed to sex. And if you've agreed to sex, then you can agree to almost anything else at the same time. What are your thoughts on that?
You have made a design that works for you.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I hope that everybody here is listening. And I would like to encourage people that go, just think, how would I tweak that for me?
Okay.
Because we will only ever be successful at what works for us. I'm
Sure.
assuming your ladies want to get married, but maybe they don't. Maybe there are
Let's
ladies.
talk about that for a second. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you. So here's the thing I've observed with midlife. And you know, I say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. So most of my audience is 42 to 69. And because my father lived to be 99, I think 69 is still midlife. Okay.
Okay.
So, you know, here's the thing. A lot of men and women are radically gun shy to marriage because they've experienced most likely 75% of the single population over 45 years old is divorced. But do you want to be 80 years old with somebody and still dating? Like I would think you would want to have something solid between the two of you for your truly elderly years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay. Remember, I've always been a contrarian when it came to this. One, what do you want? Know yourself. There
Yeah.
are some women that never, ever, ever will feel like they're with somebody if they don't have a ring and it's formal. There are other people who feel like, I can live with you. My concern has always been financial.
Sure.
My reason for not marrying was financial. And I just want to deviate for a moment for the ladies who want a committed relationship and you don't mind living with each other or visiting each other and you definitely trust each other, but you don't want to legally marry because, one, you've worked your ass off and you have a phenomenal amount of money.
Yeah.
He doesn't have as much. Maybe he's got kids that have troubles. You just know that combining it, your kids would freak out. Like, where is the inheritance going? You
Sure.
got money, your parents have just died, and you got a windfall you didn't expect. Your ex left you very well off. And now you have to, as a mature woman, begin to look and say, yeah, you're attractive and you're charismatic. I'm just a little, because if you marry, and you're in California, that's a 50-50 state. If you marry, no
Yeah, I
matter
know.
how good your prenup, it is a legal binding financial transaction.
Oh,
So
I agree. Marriage is a contract with the government. I'm just curious to hear. I'm actually more inclined to a spiritual marriage
yes.
than I
But
am
the
a
only
legal
thing it
marriage.
should have ever been, except
Yeah.
for dads that never took care of the children, that, it's really to harness people so that
Yeah.
they pay for the children that they fathered. But a spiritual marriage, that's the only one that counts, really, Jonathan. And you're an officiate, right?
Yeah, I found out of dear friends of mine who have been married for 10 years. I found out this past year they have a spiritual marriage. They have a ketubah. They don't have
What's
a ketubah.
ketubah?
It's a Jewish term or a Yiddish term or a Hebrew term or whatever
Okay.
for a marriage contract it's basically the agreements that they make with each other.
Yes.
But it's not something that you make with the government. So
Yeah.
but I don't so let's not spend too much time on
Okay.
marriage, other than the fact that my point is this. People in their 50s and 60s today, they meet the love of their life. I just think when you hit 70 and 80, you just don't want to be boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. That's where I'm going. If you've invested, I know some people have met it's their second marriage. They met at age 55 or 60. They spent 30 years together. That's like another lifetime. I would think that in those cases, you want something more concrete to say, let's take care of each other when we get old and sick. But let's not go down this road. Let's come back to commitment.
Okay. Because that is commitment, no matter what shell and structure you put it in.
Yeah.
We do want to know that they're there for us.
Yeah. And to some degree, a marriage obviously can be, it can be broken. I mean, it can get divorced. But I think what's missing today is something you and I talked about earlier. Like there was a traditional, like we were talking about before we logged on here, we were chatting, there was this traditional belief of commitment actually stood for something. Remember we were talking about that?
Okay, I get it. So the process itself allows people to really acknowledge this is a commitment they can't slip away.
Yeah. So it's changed in the last 10 or 15 years. I think the mindset surrounding commitment, forget marriage, but just committing to another person and building trust with another person and building a life with another person. I think people are just really gun shy today.
And lazy. And
yes, I'm glad you said that.
They're all of the above. Confused, lost, deranged.
And by the way, this isn't men. This is women too.
All people. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you work with women. Why do you think they feel lost?
Oh God, they're frustrated at the options. Come on, you've got mature women. Half the guys they see online, they're like, oh God, no. 1, not successful. 2, not attractive. 3, not very bright. They're like, this is what's left over. Come on. I know your ladies are feeling that. They're like, oh my God, I'm in shape. I look good. I've got money. And this is what I have.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's what I call a limited pool.
Okay.
There's a limited pool of selection. And so you've got to be very, very, very creative when there are very few choices, or in your environment or whatever you think there are.
Okay, so let's talk about something, because if we go back in time 50 years ago, before the internet, before swiping, before all of these, because all of the perceived options today, because you're right, a woman, I know some of my clients who have hundreds, if not 1,000 messages in their inbox on their dating apps. I mean, I swear to God, it could be in a high 100 numbers, and they're all looking not good looking enough, not this enough, not this. So they're inundated with what you say is the wrong person. But 50 plus years ago, We had a more limited pool. All you had was the person that was directly in front of you. That was it.
Yes, I
And
know.
so,
And in your community, and you probably married somebody within, 50
yeah,
miles of your home,
yeah,
it was a different time.
yeah.
So this is the difficulty with all of us, philosophically, romantically, that with every change of technology and advancement, you lose these precious, beautiful pieces of the past. There
Mm.
was a time when families sat down and ate dinner together and spoke with each other. Right?
Wait. You mean today we're doing this when we're having dinner?
Right. I see two people and they're older. They're like midlife and they're like on this next to each other. And I guess, well, they've said everything they need to say. So you and I feel like we're trying desperately to infuse these qualities that are beautiful back into the modern dating world. And like, listen, tribe, these are worth saving. We may want to reconfigure them for your likes and dislikes, but they're worth saving because they're the only precious part of the whole thing.
Yeah. By the way, I'm posting comments. People say Susan is right about the pickings being slim. I'm talking about organically.
Yes.
So okay, well let's inject some hope. Let's talk
Well, I
about
think we
hope.
are. You and I are always doing this.
Well, you mean well, I think our channels are about
Right.
infusing hope because
Yeah.
we've talked about what's wrong, but I got to tell you something. I just had a client reach out to me the other day. I mean, I just found out she got engaged. I mean, I'm blessed to hear great
Isn't that
stories,
beautiful?
but these are people I believe that throughout their ego, throughout that unhealthy ego, they've done the inner work to become more
Mhm.
aligned to who they are, what they want. It's not about just the superficial things. It's more about
Right.
being more emotionally connected. But most importantly, what I see from at least my female clients, is that they're empowered for the first time in their life. They're stepping in and saying, "This is what I want, and if you can't give it to me, there's another guy 2 minutes away on a dating app that's willing to give it a shot. And if you can't give it to me, I am going to make a stand for what I want." And
That's
I
great.
believe that's one of the most important things needed today, is to really establish your standard, your boundaries, and be and be unafraid to speak it.
And you know what? Men, a real man, will
Yeah,
actually respect that.
that's absolutely true.
And he'll find that sexy and powerful. Do you know how many guys I've known that
Yeah.
lived with a woman 5 years? She was desperate, nice girl. Then they meet this woman that's just like, I want this, I want this, I want this. They marry that one.
Yeah.
A woman who knows herself is a very sexy thing, but don't be a ball buster, ladies. Please have grace and dignity when you do it. Don't scare the life out of him. You can know what you want and be very articulate
Yeah.
and firm, but you also have to be open. So we've had a lot of discussions about limited pool of prospective partners. And because I just came back from Singapore,
Okay.
it's a beautiful culture. Oh my God, I'm in love with Singapore.
Okay.
But you've got mostly expats that bring in their wives or their families, or you've got guys that come in and they're there for 2, 3, 5 years doing a stint with a company, and then they're going to go back to wherever they came from. And they just mark time with these girls. And the local girls that are also really successful are thinking, oh, he's going to, sure, we're going to work this out later. And I'm looking at the guy's eyes and I can see he's just like running out the clock.
Yeah.
So he is. So there are places that it makes it hard. So I think once you know everything you're looking for, there's one little piece that can open up the last door.
Okay.
I think it's where you say, okay, universe, you know what I want. I know what I want.
Okay.
Show me. Just show me. And before I shut it down and go, no, remind me you might be sending my prize in a different package than I ever expected. And it may be perfect. Because when you're going from the inside, the outside just is whatever, but you will find it agreeable. You will never have to be with somebody you find pug ugly and just god awful.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. Because people think, oh, when I let go of this and allow the universe to bring me, they're going to bring me some just god awful man and go, here's your match. And you're like, no, I don't want it. So
I always say,
uh,
if so long as he doesn't have a beer gut the size of Texas and he isn't missing all of his teeth. I've actually found that literally 1/3, if not close to half of women I've spoken to or who are in a happy relationship, they've actually told me that they weren't actually attracted to their guy on the first, second, or third date. It was like it wasn't. Oh no, they said he wasn't my type.
yeah,
But you know what?
go.
There was something there that made me go. But there was something there made me go. Well, at least let me give him a chance. And they didn't have to force it. If you have to force yourself to give a guy a chance, then there's a problem. But it might not be your type. But these women are deliriously happy with men that weren't their type on the first, second, or third date. Hey, Susan, really quickly.
Yeah.
What? I want to open it up to questions. So let me just do a little spiel to everybody, and then we're going to open it up to questions.
Okay.
Folks, those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, write the word question in the chat box and then post the question thereafter for Susan and I. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him in the Woody outfit with his brother, Colin, who is Buzz Lightyear. That's my son who passed away over 6 years ago. In his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process, Insight Institute, and scholarships to coaching as well. Our goal tonight is $50, so we'd appreciate some love. Hit that little $. Again, if you have a question for Susan and I, write the word question and then post the question thereafter. Let's see if there's any questions that came in, Susan. I did see one earlier. Bear with me. I may have to do a lot of scrolling. Okay, Patricia wrote, my question is, if you're in a committed relationship living together and decide to have a life partner, is there anything you can write up with an attorney so you don't get screwed over?
You're talking about contracts.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
I don't know what you're in New York, so
no, these are the Europeans have been doing it for years.
Yeah.
So they even have like you come into the apartment and your roommates. There's a living together contract. I know it sounds brutal. It sounds like it's not about love. People used to say that about prenups too. But let's be logical. There's what you imagine they're going to do for you in your mind and your expectations. Yeah. And then when you put it on paper, now it's real. Yes. And that means the two of you understand the expectations of this relationship. So that document holds you to it. That way you don't have these circuitous fights. It's like, yeah, but I understand, but we were going to contribute 50-50. And now that's changed. So we have to negotiate how we handle this. So is it
called a cohabitation agreement?
You could make it anything you want. It could be between the two of you. It could be with a lawyer. You could get a notary to sign it. It doesn't matter. It's
Does it include how often to have sex?
If that's your thing, if it's every afternoon, from what I understand, it is. That better be in there. At least attempt to. Yeah, listen, I know it sounds weird, but it's a formal way to get all this stuff out that you're going to fight about later, and see if you're in a right.
And by the way, you should put all the bullet points on a bulletin board in the kitchen or someplace in the bedroom or somewhere where you have to like check boxes off. Okay, I love that question. We have more coming in. Okay, Annika's in the house. Question: why do men use the phrase "they will commit, but only to the right woman"? In other words, they will find the right person first, then commit.
So are they saying why do they say they'll commit?
Well,
use the phrase they will commit. Oh, that's
okay. Well, you know what? So I want to respond to this first and get your take on it. So I'm of the belief that, like, I know I want a life partner. I'm very clear about that. I want a life partner and I want commitment. Now, does that look like living together, spiritual marriage, cohabitation agreement? I know I'm clear about that. I don't need to say I'll commit when the right person comes because I'm already looking for that. But I think some men say that as a kind of an escape clause. And I'm kind of curious if you kind of think along the same lines.
You heard the first word that came out of my mouth.
Well, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Oh, well, maybe your viewers did. I said that's bullshit because
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I heard that. Yes. Yes. Yes.
they're trying to run out they're making you wait to see if you can audition for the role, or they're letting you know there's a bar that you have to pass. So it puts you in the position of feeling you're not good enough. So now you do nothing but try to satisfy this. That's a very arrogant thing, because maybe they were called to task. Like, I'm just curious, why have you not had a girlfriend in the last 10 years? Then they'll try and escape by saying, well, I'll know the right one, and when I meet the right one, I'll commit. But it already sounds like they've got some shaky stuff, right?
Yeah.
Pass on that one.
And to some degree, I recognize that, hey, look, I don't know if I want to commit to you. Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because we don't know each other well. So then why not say that? If you're a guy, go, look, I want commitment. I don't know if I want it with you. That's why we're going to spend time getting to know one another. And hopefully we talk about what we both desire. But I've observed, Susan, I want your take on this. And by the way, folks, Susan and I talk on an occasional basis, but I don't get to talk like this with Susan. So I've observed dating has two primary functions: to entertain one another and romance one another. Like, let me reframe that.
Okay.
That's the way most people date, to entertain and romance one another. Very little time is spent actually investigating if this person is right for you. And I wonder if you kind of observe the same thing.
Yes, I think in the frenzy of finding somebody, people tend to grab on because maybe it's been a long time since they found somebody.
Okay.
And then what we do is take this canister, this container of the looks that we like, and try and jam in all the qualities and hopes and dreams. I think the filtration process is really important. And you just don't know until you get into it, right?
Yeah.
What you said, Jonathan, you got to get in, give it a shot, see what's there. How can you work with them? That's the way.
I had a situation, then we're going to take another question, but I want your take on this. My son last year, it's now 2 years ago, he dated a gal for 5 months. And in the third month of dating her, he goes, Dad, I'm just not feeling it. And I'm like, and by the way, his mother and I love this young woman. She was like getting her master's degree. She was attractive and everything. But he said, Dad, I'm not feeling it. And I said, give it a couple more, just give it a little more time. Right. And 2 months later, he came back and said, I'm just not feeling it. Love is an intangible.
I know.
At the end of the day, I mean, here she's great on paper. She's attractive and everything, but it's an intangible.
I know.
The stars can be perfectly aligned, but it's still not work.
He gave it a shot. I mean, he's got you. He's got you to talk to. I mean, who in the world is better? But you're right. This looks really good. And there are a lot of ladies who will meet somebody. He looks good.
Yeah.
But something's missing. Something's wrong. Maybe he doesn't really resonate with you.
Well, I think, what it is, for my son's sake, and I can't believe I'm saying this, she didn't trigger whatever childhood wound he has.
Well, it's that too, but I wasn't going to say
mom or me. All right, we have another question. Sheila is in the house, and she asks, Susan, please speak to financial inequity. At what point should the dollars be discussed? I love this question. What do you think?
It's hard. You got to suss that out from the very beginning, my dear. When you step into a relationship, you've got to know what you're willing to give. I'm working with a man now who got himself involved, and I speak man very fluently. So I speak very honestly with this guy. And I said, what was your cap? 100,000, 70,000? He said, yeah, 50. I said, okay, you paid for the experience. You got it. That's what it is. Financial inequity is going to be hard, in part because of our historic mantle of being females and being taken care of and put on a pedestal. And the man that we attract is somehow equal to our worth in youth and beauty and whatever nonsense.
Yeah.
So now when you've got money and they don't, it's hard. You've got to think about, when do I include them? When do I exclude them? Not only in social situations, are they going to be comfortable? Are you going to be comfortable? If you take them on the trip you really want to go on and you go in the style you want to go on, do you feel resentful that they cannot pony up at least 50% or give? But the end of all of that is a very simple question. Is your tank full from this man? Meaning, we all have different resources to give each other. Some give emotional support. I know women that are with men that do not have the same amount of money.
Yeah.
But what they give them, the intangible, the support, the 100%, the lying, sleeping in the chair when she's in the hospital because they love her. As long as it balances out, you're in a good place. But if you start to feel resentful and your tank is going on empty and he doesn't provide the stuff that makes you feel full, then you're not in a good relationship.
And I know, and by the way, I have several female friends who are very wealthy with men who are substantially lower in net worth with the men. And in most of the cases, they feel like their cup is full. But I also know some women, it's such an ingrained belief system that the women actually sabotage great relationships because of this. This is the nuance of human behavior, human dynamics. And, you know, and I suspect she's been given this blessing of all these resources, but she's still butting up against her own wound that I invite her to work on it, but she still struggles with it. And, you know, we're all here having our own experience and our own journey. I love the way you answered that, by the way.
The lady who wrote this, it didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
The tank is a little low. So your job is to assess, can he and will he? That's it.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not anyone's responsibility to be the purse to another person.
No. No,
you know,
and
unless there's agreements, and then if there's agreements, that's okay.
So
let's take another question.
Can I take one moment,
Sure.
Jonathan? So there are many of my friends here in New York who have the luxury of having money. And the one thing that money gives you, ladies, freedom, you can pick the man you want. So please, it's a luxury. Men have been doing this for centuries. Do not let your girlfriends make you feel horrible. If you got a guy living with you, it's your house. You own it. It doesn't cost any more to have him there, but you don't need to pay for his clothes, his car insurance. And when you go out to dinner, he better pick up that tab. But however it rolls out, you got to feel okay. Sorry, Jonathan.
No, that's okay. Jane Spitfire's in the house, and she says, question, I heard men in their 40s to 50s of age want older women now, easier to be with. What do you think? Susan, you're the expert on that. So
Yay! Yay! That's all I gotta say. Yay.
My last two relationships, one was 1 year older and the other one was 10 years older.
Well, that's why we love you, Jonathan.
Huh?
We love you. That's why.
You know, it's funny. I can't date younger women. I mean, I get my Bumble app is, I mean, every day I get women swiping on me that are 10, 20, 30 years, some even 30 years younger. I just don't want to go there. I mean, my ego wants to go there, but I just know that they're not going to be good partnership material for me.
Jonathan, you know how real you are? Imagine the hypocrisy if you were working with mature women, but you only date 20-year-olds. I mean, so you.
Oh, I know. So wait a minute. So I have to live up to what I say.
But I mean, it's beautiful that you listen. Men who want older women are looking for content and substance, maturity and clarity, and they love the power. A woman who, the number one, the guys. Listen, I've interviewed so many men. I can't even tell you for this. We had to, for the book, we had to interview 200 couples and I had like another 700 after that. It was insane. Okay. So what happens is she knows what she wants. She doesn't play games and she's cool with her power. And she can talk to me. She can tell me what she wants. They're not scratching their heads going, What does that mean? No, it's fine. The woman is like present, is
Well,
very sexy.
and to the extent that that's great that if that's true, what the writer wrote, is that men in their 40s and 50s are now actively seeking that. I don't think it's some
But
sort of movement or anything like
oh,
that.
thank God, is all I gotta say.
But I do believe that there is, some men recognize that some women their own age don't feel as mature to them, and they want someone that
Exactly.
has a little more maturity, a little more
Yeah.
sophistication, that sort of thing.
And
Let's take
older
another.
women look so good nowadays too.
Oh,
It is
that's true
scary.
too. There's no doubt about it. True Morris has written, question: my ex has been catfished 3 or more times, given money to Instagram girls, but he's a smart guy, except with this. Do you think he has psychological problems and maybe trauma in the past? Interesting. What do you think, Susan?
This is her ex that she's asking about?
Yeah, she's talking about, I guess, an ex-husband, let's just say.
Well, that's lovely. Hope lives eternal.
But he's giving money away to Instagram girls. What do you think of that?
I don't know. Listen, I work with a lot of men like this. Beauty is kryptonite for these guys. A beautiful woman, but the thing that bothers me is they know the game, but they go into denial and don't want to. And it's like guys in a strip club actually think, oh, Amber really loves me, right? She wants me. I mean, it's just men. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Some men are more comfortable with delusion. The 85-year-old guy doesn't mind having a 22-year-old model, and all the rest of us are going, we know why she's there, and he's just like, look what I've got. So,
but it also speaks to, I'm sorry to interrupt. It speaks to, I think, that wanting to be desired by somebody desirable, like, I mean, in that person's eye, to wanting to be desired. And it's not an uncommon tale, men giving away money to women. I mean, that's been happening throughout history. So it's not like this new thing. But she says he's a smart man, but we all have foibles. Yes. We're, not, even the smartest person on the planet makes mistakes, So anyway, hey, I want to give props to Annika for the $5 super sticker. Oh. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. All right. Ty's in the house, and she asks, why would a guy only want sex from me who I've known for a while when I want more, but he can jump in a serious relationship with somebody else? Why would a guy only want sex with me for a while, then want more, and then jump in a relationship with someone else? Why do you think men do that with her?
Boy, Jonathan, you and I would have to work with her to give her the real down low, but it is evident from what you're saying that he does not put you in that category. And if he doesn't value her. If he doesn't put you in that category, there is no amount of sex that's going to turn him toward you. Women are listen, it has worked in history. We've got courtesans that have had palaces and titles. Yeah. Sex is powerful for men, but whatever he's experiencing with you, all I know, my dear, is he's got you in this box. You're not going to move from there. And the longer you sleep with him, the more hope is going to be dashed. So, making a stand for one's sovereignty, one's power, can be very difficult for many people. All I can say is to our writer is that when you do make a stand for your sovereignty, it might be painful, but I guarantee you at the other end, you have your own dignity, you have your own self-respect, you have your self-esteem that you get to walk away with. And it doesn't matter what he does. It's irrelevant what he does. What matters most is what you do. And, all right. And just one quick thing that once you've created that bar, and you're able to say no to what you really want.
Yeah.
I'm not from California, so forgive me when I keep saying the universe, but your body, your whole countenance will understand that. That's the new bar. You've now opened up your vibe to people who really want you for girlfriend, right?
Yes. That is so true, because when you cut that cord with someone else, you
Right,
make
exactly.
room for someone else in your life.
Yep.
Very well said, Susan. All right, Jody says, "Hi, Susan and Jonathan. Could you please recommend your number one personal favorite book on dating and relationships?" My book, but it's not dating and relationships, so let's not go there. What's your favorite book, Susan?
Jonathan's book on self-love. Actually,
No. Actually, what's your favorite book?
I don't have one. It's I'm a little unusual in this way. I don't study the work of my colleagues. Yes, because I know you. I don't read books about this, so I'm not a good barometer for that. I
Well,
think
then,
anything for self-development, for self-awareness is the greatest dating book you're ever going to have, because when you have yourself, every
Yeah.
single decision you make with a person is going to be easier.
so by the way, that was so beautifully said. It's the more an individual becomes centered and grounded to who they are as a
Yep.
person, they
Yep.
become a that magnetic attractor for what they want. But since you didn't recommend a book, I'm going to recommend two books. The first one is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It should have been titled Compassionate Communication. There's a link below to get all the books I recommend. This is a great book to use in a variety of different circumstances, whether it's interpersonal, romantic relationships, interpersonal relationships, family relationships. It's a great book on how to improve one's communication. I do love the work of the Gottmans, Eight Dates.
The Gottman Institute is fabulous.
Yeah. John and Julie Gottman wrote this.
Yep.
And if nothing else, I always say to my my
8
followers, I always say, ladies,
I need to
before
read
the
it
penis
myself.
goes inside the vagina, read chapter 1 of this book. Okay,
Good.
let's see what else we have here. We got some great questions, don't you think?
I think we have wonderful questions. You have great audiences.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm blessed. My audience loves you, so they love
well,
us both.
we're
I'm
kind of
grateful
like
for it.
stereo in our own versions. We're trying to guide people to healthy, happy, harmonious relationships with themselves and their partner.
So, Susie, you're going to love this question. I think you are. Sex, Jonathan. At my age, 75, most men have ED, and the pills seem to be failing, plus loss of libido too. Intimacy and sex is obviously a new journey at this age. She doesn't have a question, but what are your thoughts about that? I have my own thoughts about sex and ED and all that good stuff.
Well, the qualifier here is men my age. If she's that interested in sex and she's 75, she's got a lot going on. She probably plays pickleball. Maybe she's doing bridge. She's going on trips. You're way too active for men your age. And of course, I would suggest you look a little bit younger.
I have a client who's 73, and she says her and her guy are like getting it on all the time. Unfortunately, speaking as a man who does have to use a blue pill, and I'm not happy about it, partially because I have a slight heart condition. So, it has to do with the circulatory system. I recognize that as people age, we lose our libido, number one. And number two, we're just not biologically the same as we were in our 20s. And whether it's a man or a woman, because there's plenty of women who've lost their libido at even a much younger age than 75. It certainly can be a challenge. But I think your recommendation to Linda is that, yeah, there are men probably with high libidos that are 10 years younger that would be happy to want to be with you.
And there are men who are older that everything is working. So maybe she has a small community and she's relegated to not meeting as many people as she could. So I'd say expand your social circle as much as possible.
It's a good idea. And by the way, men also, there is an injection we can take.
Really?
I have a dear friend of mine. He's 75 years old. His wife is 74. They make love once a week, and he has to inject inside. It's a tiny little needle, like a diabetes type of needle.
Okay.
And and it works rock hard. So there are things people can do. So, all right, Julie's in the house, and she asks, were there as many personality disorders 50 years ago? I think so, but just not enough education about it, such as dismissive avoidance. We call people assholes. So,
Yeah.
you know what's interesting? I'm going to expand upon her question, but I believe 20 years ago, it used to be called codependency. And I think it's been replaced now with avoidant and anxious. And I know there's subtle differences, but it seems like there's, like between narcissism and this or that, there is so many personality disorders. Do you think it was different 50 years ago? Or is
Yeah.
it just, we're just now
No, I
understanding differently?
I actually think psychologists are looking for a diagnosis that will be
Okay.
covered by insurance. We
Okay.
I mean, you can't go into a psychiatric office without them writing up something, right?
Okay.
But I think we have done this detailed pruning of all these different terms. And you're right. In the 90s, it was all about codependency
Yeah.
and the inner child and all that. And then it changed. And then it was all about pickup artists. And then it was about, and then it was the bad behavior. And then it was the hookups. And then when we started having the hookups, everything fell apart. You removed the structure from the sexuality. Now everybody's just like, what's going on? So, yep.
You said this earlier. I like that you call it structure. I've always called it the mechanics of a relationship.
Yes.
But I like also the framework of the structure. I think what's really the biggest challenge today is when someone says, I want a relationship. Well, that can mean 5 different things to 5 different people. And we used to think it all meant the same thing, that the structure was always the same.
It meant marriage and children. So
Yeah.
now it could mean God knows what.
It can mean situationship. It can mean hookup. It can mean friends with benefits. It can mean casual. It can mean serious. And even serious has grade levels to it. So I think if I can, and we're going to wrap up in about 10 minutes, but if I can encourage everyone that's listening, really get clarity on what structure you want for your relationship.
Absolutely.
We call that a standard, but it's really the structure.
I say, how do you want your relationship to look, feel, and function?
Look, feel, and function. I love that.
Look, feel, and function in the real world. In the real world.
So you'll get a kick out of this. So, and I say this in all my videos, I said, I'm looking for a relationship where we spend 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal and our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to either moving in together or getting married. That's my structure.
They know exactly. Well, what I love is that you've mentioned how many days a week. That's a fight for some people. Like, you want to see me do I get Friday night through Sunday night, or do I get Saturday afternoon when you're done shooting hoops with the guys, and then I go home early on Sunday? How much, how little? That's structure. How much, how little, how together, how apart. These little things will make or break a relationship. So having these discussions early to see if you can love each other. This sex can be amazing. It can't be together. You just can't. Because it won't function.
But you know what? And I'm going to do a little function. I'm going to do something here. Women oftentimes have this.
They don't talk.
They have duct tape on their mouth. They don't talk. They're afraid to ask for what they want.
Wait. I've got a cure.
Okay, good. That's what I brought it up.
Don't ask. Tell. Everybody feels vulnerable. Like, how do you feel about monogamy? I just go right into it. I mean, honestly, I'm like, if they can take it through the first date and then want to come back, good. You made it through. I'll just say, I do monogamy. Then you got to sell it. I love the feeling of all in. Okay. I love the fact that I can be so into you. The sex is better. The emotion is deeper. The experience is richer. It's so dynamic. It's worth it. Rolling around Sunday morning, taking our time. You got to market it, sell it, make it so seductive. They're like, I want that too. Right?
That's funny. I actually didn't expect you to hear you say that, but and I think we don't mean it and selling it from a manipulative perspective, but
No,
really
I've got
it's
to tell
understanding,
why.
yeah, it's
It's
the
the why.
why.
I
Yeah.
want this. Here's why. And better yet, and how it's going to benefit you. I just
Yes.
tell them I'm rotten in bed. I am rotten in bed if I don't love you. I got to love you. Then I'm going to get all over this. If I don't, I'll just be one of those wasps. Uh, uh, uh,
Mm.
I'll be horrible. And I know that about myself. So the greatest excitement for a man
You
is,
fake
oh,
orgasms when
oh,
you're
this
not
could
in
be
love. Is
good
that
in
right?
bed. Oh, here's the requirement for her to be good. But I mean, you have whatever it takes. I say that just in humor, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's kind of true. I mean, so what whatever you want, don't be like, okay, are they going to give it to me? I feel so vulnerable saying it. Just say why you like, but tell them why it's important to you. Really, why
Yeah.
specifically, why it's important to you, and then how you think it's beneficial to the edification of a relationship. Then they'll see it doesn't sound like a demand because they'll get it. They'll get the whole picture. They'll go, oh, yeah, that's really cool.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, we have one or two more questions. Joe Daisy, do you know there are men out there who like to date because it draws more attention from other women? True story, the psychology of the broken man. What are your
Wow.
thoughts on that?
Well, we perceive men as having greater value if they have a woman on their arm because it means she qualified them as being worth something.
Hmm.
So, yes.
Interesting. I don't think that way. So it's hard for me to even put my brain in that. And I recognize that there are deeply wounded people or emotionally stifled people or people that live in their ego. Um, I'm just a big proponent of being really radically honest, like what we just talked about.
Right.
Set up that structure before you ever get physical with someone
I
and do your
agree.
due diligence. All right, we have a few more questions. Wendy White said, I'm dating a man that divorced in February after 2 long years. He is worried about moving forward because he doesn't want to hurt me. He has asked me to give him time. What should I do?
Wow, that one's tough. I know a
Nope, stop
woman.
sex.
Well, I was. I know a woman that is a She's actually one of our colleagues.
Okay.
Asked me what to do. She was in a similar situation,
Okay.
and I said, "Did you put a limit on it? Because time can't be like whatever. You're supposed to be waiting. Did you put conditions and a limit around how long you'll be willing to wait? Because he just, there's a lot going on. He doesn't want to hurt you. I like that. I actually asked her to give him some time. They're married now. It wasn't easy for her, but he was a man of quality. The timing was off for him, but she made an investment. She made a calculated risk.
But isn't that the exception and not the rule?
It
I mean,
is.
let's be real. I think men know in 90 days if you're the one. I
I
mean, in other words,
I think
if
they know
I,
in 5 minutes if you're a contender, if you're
well,
worth something.
well, we have to differentiate. Okay. I would say within 5 minutes, I know if I want to have sex with you, which is pretty much every woman. So
Ah,
they're all a contender for sex. But if
okay.
they're a contender for a relationship, I would say that most men who invest 90 days, like my son, he gave it 90 days and he goes, I'm just not feeling it. I think at the most it takes 90 days to know whether or not she is genuine relationship, long-term
Yeah.
material. And if it takes more time, it's usually because that guy is broken. And if he's broken, he needs to work on himself before then you invest in, because you're taking a gamble. And I guess that with your friend at work, but I just say
I,
you're
I
taking a gamble.
I'm with you, Jonathan. 90% of the time I'm with you,
Okay.
but there is that occasional other. And the thing is, how long have you been dating him? What does he want? A lot of the contingency is the factors that we don't know, but we can't wait on somebody to decide that we are worthy of exploration, serious exploration. So you may need to retract and let him do his thing. until he's clear and move on with your life. Right,
Yeah.
Jonathan?
I'm in full agreement. And honestly, if you don't have strong feelings actually within the first 30 days, I mean, and I'm saying you really genuinely have genuine strong feelings for someone. I think oftentimes if they have walls up, you're rolling the dice that those walls will come down. Susan, we talked about what it takes for a man to commit. We talked about the various nuances of dating today. We talked about so many things. I was so excited to have you on. I am very grateful to have you on. Everyone, if you want to follow Susan Winter, I'm going to post a link below. You can check out her YouTube channel, which she's got more followers than I do. She's an amazing coach. There's probably, I'll include a link of how to get in touch with Susan.
Thank you,
Susan. Thank you for being on today.
Jonathan, I adore you. You're so big and strong. Yeah, I adore you. No, ladies, you are in good hands. You're hearing it from a man who knows what it's like to be a man, and he will guide you beautifully to the kind of relationship you want. So that's all I have to say. And that's why he's my colleague in this business. Yes.
Well, you know what? We should do this more often.
I love it.
Because I like that we were talking about things that we don't get to talk about, but we're talking about those nuanced things that I think is so important that we dive into these nooks and crannies. So
I love it.
So I reach in the camera and give you a big hug of appreciation.
You want to.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, everyone who joined us. I do appreciate it.
Oh, well, I want to thank Joe, Daisy, and Wendy, and Debbie, and True Morris, and Natty, and Ty, and Jane, and Debbie, and Betty, and Sherry, and Annette, and Stacy, and Johika, and Annette, and Catherine is in the house, and McCoy Oak Hill Farm is in the house, Melanie, KH, everyone, thanks for being on. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful, fabulous day.